So yesterday we made a video about the gold versus Bitcoin debate with the young lady Leah and Peter Schiff. I really enjoyed that, right? Now I didn't make that video so that people can choose either Bitcoin or gold, right? Now full disclosure, I don't have any gold, not because it's bad or something like that, but I made a video about that. And if you haven't watched it, check it out. I explained why I don't have any gold in my stack, but I do love gold though. But I want to talk about Bitcoin because that's very, very important to me. You know what I mean? And it's important for the world. I'm all about freedom on this channel, and I believe Bitcoin is the new paradigm shift in money. I really do. And nobody explains it better. One of the best to explain it is Matthew Kratter from Bitcoin University. Now, in this video, he was Trader University, but he's going to break down Bitcoin for beginners in the year 2023, and I'll be talking and reacting to this video. So let's check it out.
This is Matthew Kratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about Bitcoin for beginners here in 2023. If you still don't understand what this Bitcoin thing is, I think you'll find this video helpful. Now, I first heard about Bitcoin in 2011 from a friend, and I thought about buying $10,000 worth of it at the time when you could still buy Bitcoin for about $1 per Bitcoin. Now, today, that 10,000 Bitcoin would be worth over $200 million. So I really missed out big time. But here's the good news. We're still really, really early here in 2023. And I think that Bitcoin will continue to appreciate quite a bit in value for the rest of our lives.
Wow. Can you imagine buying Bitcoin at $1? That's funny. That story reminds me of, I think it was around 2017. I had an extra about 30 grand on the side, just sitting there. And I was going to buy Bitcoin. I kept hearing about it in 2017. That's when the craze really hit. And I was like, you know what? It was about 3,000 at the time. It was like 2,900 or something like that, around 3,000. I was going to buy 10 of them. Oh, my God, if I would have bought 10. But I think the difference between what I didn't buy then at 3,000 until now versus what it is now until the future, I think the gap is going to be a lot bigger. So I don't feel too bad. But again, you get it at the price where you deserve it. And that's why a lot of people buy cryptocurrencies. I'm all into Bitcoin because they'll say, oh man, I can get this crypto for 50 cents or this crypto for $2. And you can get a whole coin, if you will, with the other ones. But it's not all about the coin. It's about getting as many Satoshis as you can, because that's 100 million Satoshis in one Bitcoin. That's how it's divided. So, yeah, a lot of people think they missed out, but you keep watching this video and you'll see that you're very, very early.
I think you're going to become quite wealthy buying Bitcoin in 2023, but as we're going to see in this video, that's actually the least interesting part of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a lifeline for humanity, and it has much larger and more interesting social implications. So why didn't I buy Bitcoin in 2011? Well, for one thing, I thought I was too smart for this kind of thing. I'd already been in the markets for over 15 years, and I had a strong finance background, having worked for a prominent multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. So I knew a lot about finance, and I considered myself just too smart, quote unquote, too smart to be fooled by something like Bitcoin. It sounded scammy. It sounded like a Ponzi scheme. It was definitely too volatile for me, and I was certain that it would never succeed. So unfortunately, I passed judgment on something without putting in even a few hours of research and learning exactly how Bitcoin works and how the Bitcoin ecosystem works. And that was, in retrospect, obviously a big mistake. So here's the thing. Bitcoin has had a market cap in the hundreds of billions of dollars for many years now. It keeps crashing and dying, and you can read an obituary of Bitcoin almost every day in your local newspaper or website. But the funny thing about Bitcoin, after it crashes and quote unquote dies, it keeps rising from the ashes and then coming back and eventually hitting new all-time highs again, usually within a couple years. Now, people compare Bitcoin to the tulip bubble, but the thing about tulips and the tulip bubble back in Europe was the tulip bubble popped and never came back. Bitcoin keeps coming back, which suggests that there might be something there. It looks actually a lot like Amazon, for example, which basically crashed, went down 90% from 2000 to 2002. And then unlike the tulip bubble, Amazon came back and obviously went on to hit many multi-year new highs for many, many years. So Bitcoin too keeps coming back, which suggests that there is something there. It's a little bit more like Amazon than like tulips.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. When I first got into Bitcoin, I thought it was a scam too. Before I bought into it and I was hearing about it. And that's why I didn't pull the trigger, because I thought I was too smart. I was into finance too. But he's exactly right about the the chart. And it's funny. The reason I'm making this video is because of everything that Peter Schiff was saying in the other video. Peter Schiff has been hating on Bitcoin for a long, long time. And he's been wrong a lot. You know what I mean? He's been saying it's a bubble, it's this, that, third, but it keeps on coming back. Every single time it drops down 75, 80%, it keeps coming back. And there's a reason for it. Let me show you this chart right here. This is from Gareth Salloway. He was on Stansberry Research. He showed that exact same chart that he was talking about with Amazon. Let's take a look.
Let's pull up that Bitcoin chart now, if you don't mind. Let's see how Bitcoin did.
Yeah, so Bitcoin is definitely, from the beginning of the year, Bitcoin is down. Bitcoin opened the year around 48,000. It's currently trading just below, well, right above 39,000. So it is down this year. And the biggest concern for me continues to be the bear flag that is forming. So if we look at a simple chart of Bitcoin and we look at the big move down from the November highs here, and then this is all inside bar. I mean, look at the amazing, these lines, by the way, they're 100% parallel between this one up here and the one below. And this Bitcoin chart is just working its magic in here, going sideways. And this pattern, again, if you look at 100 of these, 1,000 of these patterns, 80% approximately of these patterns will break lower. So again, there's no guarantees. It could always surprise us all. But considering the headwinds of the Fed hiking rates with inflation where it is and everything else, you have to think the likely trajectory is to the downside over the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, so real quick. So that chart was from 2021. That was when Bitcoin hit its all-time high twice. It hit 64,000 and 69,000. Had a little M part pattern, and I want you to remember that M part pattern. And then towards the end of the year, it was in the 40s and stuff in 2021. And then 2022 was the bear market. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind when you're watching that chart.
And are you sticking to your call that you could see it head down to 20,000?
Yes, I am. And to be honest, I want to be clear, 20,000 is kind of my high end. I do think it could go below that. If you look at this chart pattern here, it is picture perfect of Amazon in the 99, 2000 into 2001.com bubble. If you look at how people talk about cryptocurrency or have talked about it, it's exactly how they were talking about the internet back in the late 90s with the dot-coms. So again, you have the same replication of the pattern on the charts. You have the same replication of the thought process and the excitement. And in other words, you need a flush out. And in my opinion, this is not a flush out. We still have 19,000 now cryptocurrencies out there. That's way too many to even have a healthy market. You need to see a lot of those cryptocurrencies, and I'm talking like 90%, if not more, go out of business, and then the best of breed can rise again. But in that period of going out of business of a lot of the smaller ones, Bitcoin will have to take a hit. Just naturally, people will get very, very fearful.
This guy needs to play the lottery because he's exactly right. He's right about the cryptos that need to crash. Oh, there's more now. It's like 22,000 of them. And also, he called the price. It went down in the 20s. And then obviously, when the FTX stuff happened later on in 2022 in November, it crashed down to 15 and like half thousand. So he's right on the money right now. Now he's getting ready to show you the Amazon chart. Check this out.
So when you talk of this Bitcoin correction, is it healthy? Is it needed? Do you see it for a greater good?
Yeah, I absolutely see. And I think it's important for me to point out that, if you look at the Amazon chart, and I love showing this chart because it's so eye-opening. I'm going to go to the Amazon chart. We're going to go to the weekly, and let's go back to the 99 2000 bubble on this, right?
Please.
So here you have it. So this was your run up, and it looks very much similar. Look at this M pattern, which is almost identical to what we have on Bitcoin.
Now that's the M pattern I was talking about when it went from 64, then crashed down, then went back up to 69, and everybody was tripping about it. That's the M pattern I was talking about.
And what ended up happening here is you saw this wipeout where Amazon bottomed out down here around $5 to $6. So by the way, that's the worst case, right? So if you look at the percentage drop from 112 to $6, I mean, think about that mapped out to where Bitcoin could go from 69,000 to where, right? I mean, that's pretty scary. That's kind of a worst case scenario because I do think there's additional adoption taking place, so it probably won't go that low, but it just gives you an idea of what is possible. But then what I love to do here, folks, is remember this M pattern and let's zoom out on the chart and then look at where it is, right? So here's that M pattern right over here. And then look at what Amazon did over the next 20 plus years. So I think that this is a very very healthy thing. Think of it
Yeah.
in a Darwinian thing where you need the best to survive,
Yeah.
where you need the money and the focus going into the best ones. You don't want the focus spread amongst 19,000 cryptocurrencies. And then if you can get that, then the concentration of wealth goes towards the top ones, and you see this type of performance. So yes, 3, 6, 9 months out, I'm bearish on Bitcoin, but I ultimately am hugely bullish.
Wow, that right there is
Yeah.
so, if a picture says 1,000 words, that's wow. Okay.
Exactly, Daniela. And let me tell you something. Human beings, we don't think outside of linear terms. We think day by day, maybe a week. What are we eating today for breakfast, lunch, dinner? What are we doing tomorrow? What are we going to do from a week from now? That chart was 20 something years old. And that's what I do with my Bitcoin. I don't look at it in today's numbers or whatever. I look at it long term. You know what I mean? I don't care about the volatility and stuff like that. You ever notice that when they talk about Bitcoin, they always compare it to the internet and Amazon, because that's the only thing you can compare it to. And just for those that don't know, Bitcoin is adoption rate is faster than both of those. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I'm not saying it's going to do that or anything like that. I'm just saying we can only look at the past and look at what's going on. And right now, Bitcoin's looking pretty good in comparison to those charts.
And so I think we all need to be humble, and this is what my past with Bitcoin has taught me in rejecting Bitcoin in 2011. We all need to be humble in the face of things that we don't understand, especially if something is a new technology like Bitcoin. And the fact that Bitcoin is still worth hundreds of billions of dollars, even after the brutal bear market that we've been experiencing, suggests that there might be something there that is worth looking into. But if Bitcoin is this fraudulent thing, it just for some reason never goes to zero. It can't seem to go to zero. So I think that's an interesting thing to investigate.
And that's where I think humbly Peter Schiff has it wrong. You know what I mean? He's always talking about it's going to go to zero and this, that, and the third. And a lot of people say that. And I'm not saying it's not going to. You know what I mean? But I mean, you keep seeing it. It crashes down 75, 80%. Then it goes back up, crashes down 50, 60, 70. That doesn't happen in the market normally. That's not normal because Bitcoin's not normal.
So what is Bitcoin exactly? Bitcoin is a new kind of money that is very special for 3 reasons. The first reason is that Bitcoin was not issued by a government or by a corporation. And if you think about it, almost every money you've ever encountered was issued by usually a government, but in some cases a corporation as well. Bitcoin is a new, neutral form of money that cannot be manipulated by government officials or corporate insiders or insiders of any kind or anyone else. There's nothing else like this out there, not Ethereum, not Cardano, not these other cryptocurrencies that try to say that they are neutral and decentralized like Bitcoin. And when you do the work, you'll see that this is the case.
Yeah, he's 100% right there. And again, when he's talking about doing the work, do your own research. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Matthew Cratter. Don't listen to Peter Schiff. Do your own reading. Get some books. Watch some videos. Learn about how the network actually works. Keep an open mind and try to learn this thing. Because if it's a good thing or if it works, then that's a great thing. Why would you not want a digital currency that can fight for freedom and go against the CBDCs? I think that's a good thing.
So that's the first reason that Bitcoin is a very special new kind of money. The second reason is that anyone can send Bitcoin to anyone else in the world. In other words, P2P or peer-to-peer, without using a third party like a bank or other financial services company. And this is also very, very unusual. We're used to having to ask permission from Wells Fargo or Bank of America, for example, to move our money around, or PayPal or Venmo, etc. But with Bitcoin, anyone can send money to anyone else in the world without using a third party. And the applications of this are almost infinite, as we're going to see.
That is one of many things I love about Bitcoin, because I can send Bitcoin to my daughter, I can send it to my wife, I can send it to my brother, I can send it to myself. You know what I mean? With very, very low fees, and it's almost instantly getting there. You know what I mean? It doesn't take a couple of weeks to, confirm or nothing like that. It's crazy because we think that we need a permission from a government or something like that to send our money. You know what I mean? That's why when Peter Schiff said there's no utility value, I couldn't disagree more. There's so many utility values, but to send money peer-to-peer without any third parties, any banks or anything, or anybody's permission, I think that's a great utility.
The last really interesting thing about Bitcoin is that its supply, its future maximum supply, is capped at 21 million coins or 21 million Bitcoin. Now, its first difficult to understand how this cap is enforced, but you have to trust me on this for now. It has a credibly enforced future supply. And so Bitcoin is in many ways scarce, like something like gold, like a precious metal. But the interesting thing is you can also zap it anywhere in the world over the internet, which you can't do with physical gold or silver. Because Bitcoin is not issued by governments or controlled by governments, we don't have to worry about them printing a lot more of it as well. So when central banks print more US dollars, more euros, or more Australian dollars, or Canadian dollars, or other fiat currencies, it makes all the existing money worth less, including the money that's in your pocket and in your bank account. And this is why things cost more over time. You've probably seen this chart of the falling purchasing power of the US dollar. Back in 1913, a dollar, what the equivalent of a dollar today, was worth $26.14. And as the dollar has been devalued through central bank money printing, we experience this as inflation. So again, a dollar in 1913 had the same buying power as $26 in 2020. So for example, back in 1913, you could buy 30 Hershey's chocolate bars for just $1. Today, that will cost you $26. So we can see how fiat currencies, even very strong, relatively safe fiat currencies like the US dollar, fall in value over time in terms of purchasing power. So for example, when I was a kid in the 1970s, a Big Mac cost about 50 cents. Today it costs about 10 times that, or close to $5, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depending where you are. And this is not because the burger is that much higher quality today. In fact, it's probably the opposite. It's actually because the US dollar always loses purchasing power over long periods of time, over multi-year periods of time, or over decades. In 20 years from now, it's quite likely that a Big Mac will cost more than $30. So this becomes the question for people who want to retire. How do you protect your retirement savings from inflation like this? None of us can work forever, so we need to set aside some money for our future selves, or maybe for our descendants, our children or grandchildren. So how do we make sure that that $5 that we set aside today in our savings or in our retirement savings will still buy us a Big Mac in our old age? Now you could put that $5 into gold, but gold has not been a good inflation hedge for the past 14 years, really since 2010 or so. You could invest that $5 into real estate, but then you have to deal with tenants, maintenance costs, insurance, property taxes, etc. Also, it's impossible really to buy any real estate for small amounts of money like $5. And we want retirement savings to be opened up to all the people of the world. You can invest that $5 into bonds, but they don't pay enough interest to keep up with inflation. The interest rate on the bonds is always below CPI or whatever. You could invest that $5 into stocks, but there's no guarantee that the companies that you invest in will still be around in 20 years. What if you buy the next Xerox or the next Kodak or Blockbuster or some other company whose products have become obsolete over time due to technological change? Now you could buy a stock index fund or a stock mutual fund, but there's no guarantee that the US stock market will still be around in 20 years. So for example, in the 20th century, the German and Russian stock markets went to zero a few times. And so even holding an index fund in one of those countries at that time, if they had existed, would not have helped you there.
I can't disagree with them there. We all know that the dollar's dying. It's inflationary, obviously, because they print more of it all the time. With Bitcoin, it's deflationary because they can't make any more of it. Silver and gold, I think, are second best to that. He's saying basically the reason why he's comparing gold to Bitcoin, basically saying compared to Bitcoin, it hasn't been a good inflationary hedge on inflation because the simple fact that it's manipulated. We all know silver and gold on the paper price are manipulated. That's why we buy it, because it's cheap. But I think silver has done pretty good with inflation. But with silver, it keeps up with inflation. I think gold does too. A lot better than fiat, obviously. But with Bitcoin, it's deflationary because if you look at the chart, it's going up. It's volatile, but it's going up and to the right. And here's the thing: they're not making any more of it. That's the difference. Inflation is printing more money. Deflation, it's a fixed number of monies. And that's what Bitcoin is, a fixed number.
But if you cannot trust the stock market, which is so volatile, the question always is, then why would you want to trust something even more volatile like Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is volatile over shorter periods of time, but it actually has a very different path over longer periods of time, thanks to its fundamentals. And those fundamentals are Bitcoin is scarce. There's just 21 million coins that can be made or mined. Bitcoin cannot be seized. if you hold it the right way. Bitcoin cannot be censored. Bitcoin cannot be controlled by anyone except you. If you hold bonds or stocks or money in a bank, those things can all be frozen, especially during a crisis. Even if you haven't done anything wrong, bad things can happen like that. But when you hold Bitcoin, it's a bearer asset like gold, and you can hold it yourself. You don't have to hold it in an account somewhere, or you don't have to hold it in a bank vault. For example, I could put $1 million worth of Bitcoin into what we sometimes call a brain wallet and walk across any border. All I need to do is memorize 12 words, and I can access my Bitcoin on the other side of that border. I can also zap some Bitcoin to people who need it in South America or Africa and not have to deal with Western Union and the huge fees that come with remittances. I can send Bitcoin to my future self by holding it and rest assured that it will keep its purchasing power over long periods of time due to its scarcity. So Bitcoin is a wonderful asset to hold for retirement if you live in a relatively stable part of the world like the US, Europe, Canada, Australia, Japan, etc. Bitcoin is also a wonderful asset to hold if you live in a part of the world that has less strong property rights, higher inflation, more political instability. And as we've seen, and as we may see these more relatively stable parts of the world like the US, Europe, Canada, Australia, Japan, things can always change, especially over decades, and these could become places that have less strong property rights, much higher inflation, more political instability. But if you are already living in one of these countries like Nigeria, for example, Nigerians are finding Bitcoin extremely useful in the economic crisis that they're going through and the money crisis. And I'll link to this article below if you want to read more about that.
Nigeria, other parts of Africa, and a lot of third world, second world countries around the world that don't have banks. Bitcoin allows you to have a bank on your phone, right in your pocket. A lot of people don't have banks, man, because we live in America and, like you said, first world countries and stuff like that. We're going to be the last ones to go. Our fiat currency will be the last, the United States. We're the world reserve currency. Everybody keeps saying we're going to go to hyperinflation. I don't believe that. I believe we'll be switching over to the CBDCs before that happens. And I don't think we're going to lose our world reserve currency for another maybe 5 to 7 years, maybe to the BRICS nations or something like that. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But what I do know, there's a lot of countries in the world and people around the world that do not have access to a bank. You know what I mean? And with Bitcoin, you can be your own bank. You can zap it anywhere, like you said, send it to yourself, buy things with it. A lot of places take Bitcoin now. You know what I mean? So, so it's definitely the future in my book.
As we said, Bitcoin is an easy and low-cost way to send remittances to other countries, and you can bypass greedy companies like Western Union. Bitcoin is a life raft for refugees who no longer need to leave their savings behind when they flee their country. They can bring their savings in Bitcoin in a brain wallet, and they don't have to carry anything. They can just have it in their head. And so you can think of all the instances in history where this would have been very, very useful, especially the exodus out of Germany and the exodus out of Russia during the world wars. Bitcoin is also a life raft for those who choose to remain in an unstable country and they want to hide their savings from an authoritarian ruler who wants to confiscate it or protect it, or they want to protect it from high inflation. We saw a recent example of that in late 2022 and early 2023 with the Lebanese pound collapsing. And if you were holding your wealth, your savings in Bitcoin as opposed to Lebanese pounds, you were able to weather this crisis quite well, whether you left the country or whether you chose to stay behind. We can see here a chart of Bitcoin denominated in Lebanese pounds, and even though Bitcoin has been going down in terms of currencies like the Canadian dollar and the US dollar and the euro, we can see how much it spiked during the Lebanese pound during their financial crisis. So this was a very good life raft for the Lebanese who are able to use it.
See, we're spoiled because we denominate everything in US dollars. But that chart is absolutely right when it comes to Lebanese money. It's the same thing with Argentina money right now. In Argentina, Bitcoin is costing a lot of money. You know what I mean? Because of, the hyperinflation and stuff. So we can't just look at it from the US dollars aspect. We got to look at it through all the country's fiat currencies. Because remember, Bitcoin is a global money, not just the United States.
Now, you may have heard people say bad things about Bitcoin. Bitcoin wastes energy, it's bad for the environment, it can be destroyed by a quantum computer, it's not scarce because it can be cloned, it's for criminals, it's a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme, it's too volatile, it's a bubble, it has no intrinsic value, it's manipulated by whales, it's controlled by XYZ government, it's controlled by the Bitcoin miners, it's controlled by the Bitcoin developers, governments can ban Bitcoin. And the list really goes on and on. Now, these are all objections that I used to have as well. But I can assure you that if you put in the time, you will see how ridiculous each of these critiques actually is. They sound pretty smart when you first encounter them, but almost all of them are completely ridiculous. There's this tendency for people new to Bitcoin, and I was the same way, to think that they are seeing something that no one has ever seen before. But you have to understand that some of the smartest minds in the world have been trying to figure out how to break Bitcoin, trying to figure out how it fails for years and years and years, and everyone has failed. There have been many attacks on Bitcoin, yet still it's here. It's extremely anti-fragile. It's extremely robust. If you put in the time, you'll see that Bitcoin cannot be stopped or destroyed by anyone, not by any individuals or group or government. And once you understand that Bitcoin cannot be stopped, it gets really, really interesting.
And this is why I make these videos, guys, because I was the same way. Everything he just said, everything on that list, I used to think that too. And many of you that are watching this video right now think this way too. I get so many comments, especially from a couple of you guys, just tell me all the reasons why Bitcoin's not going to work, why it's going to zero. And I just laugh to myself. And I'm not trying to be funny, but you guys just don't know. You haven't put in the work like I have and many smart people around the world have. That's almost like somebody, when you tell me Bitcoin's not working, I know silver and Bitcoin's not the same. I know silver has a longer, way longer history, but you know silver. You know, a lot of you guys that are silver stackers. That's the equivalent of somebody telling you that silver is not worth anything, silver is not money, or silver is going to go away and go to zero. That's how you sound when you tell me Bitcoin is going to zero. Because I've done the work, I've done the research, I've done the math, and that's what Bitcoin is, math, and it's physics. And that's two things that never lie. I don't care what Peter Schiff says. I don't care what anybody says. I know how the network works, and I know math and physics, and that's what Bitcoin is.
So for example, if you have objections, if you've heard things about Bitcoin, I'm going to give you a resource here that you can use. I'll put a link in the description notes below to all of my videos on YouTube, and there's this search box right here. So for example, if you're worried about whether quantum computing will destroy Bitcoin, you can just type in quantum and you'll see all my videos about quantum. If you want to read about intrinsic value of Bitcoin or hear about the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, you'll just type that in here. And these videos, I have close to 1,000 videos, I believe, that are on just Bitcoin. So you'll be able to find your questions answered here. And this is one way to answer this long list of objections to Bitcoin.
Now, this is just my opinion. I've watched so many different Bitcoin channels. People talk about Bitcoin, but this is my favorite channel. Bitcoin is my favorite subject right now. And Matthew Kratter and Trader, the artist formerly known as Trader University and Bitcoin University, in my opinion, is the best. You know what I mean? So again, read the books. There's a Bitcoin Standard. There's all kind of Michael Saylor. There's all kind of things and people that talk about it. But this one's the best to me. If you just go through his videos and watch what he's saying, he's stating all facts. You know what I mean? If you really want to learn about Bitcoin, he's the number one source on YouTube, hands down.
Now, after you put in some time doing your own research on Bitcoin, I would suggest that the best way next to learn about Bitcoin is just to buy a small amount. Just buy $1, $2, $5, $10, whatever is a small amount of money for you. Buy it on your phone using one of the apps that I'm going to recommend and start playing around with it, sending it to your friends and family, seeing how it really works. You can check out, and I'll put links in the description notes below to all these companies. Strike has a very good app for iOS and Android. Take a look at Swan Bitcoin. Take a look at River Financial. And if you want two interesting wallets as well to hold on your phone and play around with, there's the Moon wallet, Moon with 2 U's, and there's the Blue wallet, which again, I'll link to these in the description notes below.
And that's what I say. Just buy a little bit. You know, I had one particular guy who's a stacker. He absolutely is in love with silver. He thinks Bitcoin's going to zero. He thinks it's a scam, blah, blah, blah. He told me that he was going to sell one of his kilo bars and buy Bitcoin. I don't suggest that. I don't suggest you selling your silver and your gold unless, you go down the rabbit hole and you really find out. In the beginning, just put a couple of bucks in. That's all you got to do, man. Just put a couple of bucks in. Like I said last night at the end of my video, learn about more of it. And then once you get familiar with it, then buy a cold storage wallet. Don't keep it on an exchange. Do a self-custody, but definitely just start off with a couple of bucks.
Now, here are some important concluding notes. When you're first getting started, focus on Bitcoin, don't focus on crypto. The reason for this is, as you'll see when you've done the research, as I have, is that crypto is mostly scams and unregistered securities. And we saw this in 2022 with Do Kwon of Terra Luna and Alex Mashinsky and Celsius, Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX was the other really big example. These crypto people will try to sell you their tokens or their coins by claiming that they're harder, better, faster, stronger. They'll say things like Bitcoin is slow, Bitcoin doesn't scale, Bitcoin is old tech, Bitcoin is a pet rock that doesn't do anything, that has no uses. And as we've seen in this video, you can see that Bitcoin actually has many, many incredibly useful functions and features. But these people will say this because they want to sell you their coins. Now, crypto, unlike Bitcoin, Bitcoin isn't issued by anyone. It's not issued by a corporation or a government. But crypto, by contrast, is always issued by a small group of insiders who are pretending not to be a small group of insiders, pretending not to be a corporation, for example. And they'll do this by hiding behind complicated legal structures like foundations, or by doing their activity in another country and then bringing their tokens to the US or Europe. Governments are in the process of shutting down these schemes, as they should be, but they can't stop Bitcoin. No one can stop Bitcoin, and Bitcoin doesn't need to be stopped because it's not scammy. It's a very benevolent digital asset. So if you begin by focusing on Bitcoin and just avoid crypto for now, you will learn enough to be able to see for yourself why crypto, Web3, DeFi, NFTs, and all these other schemes should be avoided. Bitcoin is the real revolution here. Next steps, explore my Bitcoin videos on YouTube. As we said, don't forget all the videos I have on YouTube, and again, that search, this little search function that you can do here to have all of your different questions asked. And I think as you peruse these videos and browse them, you'll find some very interesting things. For example, how Bitcoin will make housing affordable again, and various other things. For example, how Bitcoin can survive an EMP attack. Bitcoin really touches, because it's the new future money, it touches on so many areas of our lives. And when you begin to go down the rabbit hole, as they say, I think you'll learn some very interesting things. So be sure to check out all these free videos that I've done about Bitcoin on YouTube.
Again, guys, make sure you go to his channel and subscribe. I got the link to the video. Make sure you watch it by yourself and watch some more of his videos. So as you guys know, I'm Jerry from Jerry Loves Freedom. And I know a lot of you guys are getting sick of me making Bitcoin videos. At first, I started off as a precious metal channel. I'm not just a precious metal channel. I'm all about freedom and the Constitution, and I'm a patriot of the United States of America, and I'm a veteran. And I want freedom through hard money, and I believe in hard money. And the hardest money is Bitcoin. The precious metals I buy are hard precious metals, rare ones that they're not making anymore. And I buy platinum because there's not a lot of it and it's rare. And I believe in hard money. So do yourself a favor, guys. Get off zero, get you some Bitcoin, learn about it, and then get a cold storage. All right. I love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace and love, guys.